Death doesn't forget, and in Final Destination Bloodlines, it's keeping receipts. Today we're talking about legacy, trauma, and some unhinged deaths, because let's be honest with each other, none of us are going to look at an MRI machine the same way again. At this point, you know I am a sucker for gore, and if you've been here for a while, then you know I especially love that gloriously over-the-top, getting into hilarious territory kind of gore. And if you're hearing my voice for the first time, hello there and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about Final Destination Bloodlines, and here's the question. Is it the best movie in the franchise, or is it just the best Final Destination movie we've gotten in years? I rewatched the entire franchise, I took notes, and I've got some thoughts, from the story to maybe being desensitized after binge watching 5 movies back to back. We're going to get into whether or not Bloodlines is just that good or if it's just that brutal. Let's talk about it. Final Destination Bloodlines is the latest installment in the franchise, directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein. This time, the story focuses on Stephanie Lewis, a college student tormented by a violent and recurring nightmare. She leaves school to go back home and track down the one person who might be able to break the cycle of death and save her family from the grisly demise that inevitably awaits them all. Underneath all the blood, guts, broken bones, and brain matter, which we are totally here for, Bloodlines gets a little heavy with ideas of generational guilt and inescapable legacy, the consequences of survival, family estrangement and reconciliation, and control versus the inevitable. Now, we already got into the whole control versus fate conversation a couple of episodes ago when we talked about Ballerina, which is available now on the podcast and on YouTube. So we don't need to talk about it again, even though we totally can, because it would be an entirely different conversation. What I want to talk about is the consequences of survival, because it sounds kind of bad, right? But in the context of the film, the way it explores the long-term consequences of survival, how cheating death ripples out over generations, is so interesting. Digging deeper into that idea, we get to how trauma and unresolved guilt are inherited. In this case, it's death's design and how it impacts future generations. When Stephanie's grandmother Iris has a vision of the Skyview collapsing, she ends up saving countless lives, and we all know how death feels about that. All of the people she saved went on to have families over the decades, and now death is coming for the survivors and their descendants. Now, knowing death's design and tracking so many deaths is not a walk in the park. Iris is going through it, and this has greatly impacted her relationship with her daughter Darlene, and that same rift is in the relationship between Darlene and Stephanie. It's generational trauma and guilt all in motion. So, we've unpacked some of the trauma, but this is Final Destination, so you already know we get to watch every death play out in graphic detail. Let's get into some of the stuff that might be a bit much for some viewers. I am going to breeze through this section because I also want to touch on general triggers for the entire franchise. I know I am breezing through this casually, but please note that the deaths in this movie and the franchise are all extremely explicit and incredibly graphic, and the sound design is just the bloody cherry on top. For Final Destination Bloodlines, we're looking at various body trauma, crushing, broken bones, impalement, dismemberment, explosions, and general physical mutilation. The entire MRI sequence is wildly graphic. There's also drowning, suicide. Someone allows death to take them off the list. I also want to add that there is a degloving injury that doesn't happen quickly. Now, I don't want anyone going to Google and seeing pictures of this type of injury, or any injury, to be honest, especially if you are more sensitive to this kind of material. So let's talk about it for a second. According to Google, a degloving injury is a severe type of traumatic injury where skin and underlying soft tissue are torn away from the underlying muscle, bone, or connective tissue. This does happen to a character's finger early on in the film. You'll know when it's about to happen. We touched on the themes earlier, and in that are some elements that can be triggering. The relationship between estranged family members, as well as characters dealing with the sudden and violent deaths of loved ones. There's also the idea of mortality and the inevitability of death. And the tamest ones on the list, it has to be the autopsy in progress. There's also a scene involving a tongue piercing and self-tattooing. For the franchise overall, we're looking at a lot of the same triggers, excepting death, being crushed, drowning, impalement, blood and gore, and so on. If you're new to the franchise and you want to take a look at previous installments, here's what else you'll want to keep in mind. A plane explosion, and this is coupled with anxiety and turbulence, strangulation, a graphic car accident, eye trauma, nails to the face, and not fingernails like hammer and nail, nails to the face, and suction. And yeah, it's as bad as you're thinking it is. I tried to catch as much as I could when I was rewatching the movies, and as always, I do try to catch what I think could be upsetting to some viewers, but let's be honest, my scale might be a little off. So please do your own research and make sure you're in a good headspace before watching. Now, for most people, that list might sound like a warning, and it absolutely is. But for us horror fans and fans of the franchise, that's basically a highlight reel. And Final Destination Bloodlines does not disappoint. It might actually be one of the smartest, most emotional entries in the entire franchise. Let's get into what makes Bloodlines stand out. The twist on Death's list is brilliant. Bringing fate and family together adds a fresh layer of emotional depth that I feel like the series rarely digs into. Instead of a random group of strangers getting picked off one by one, which we love, this time it's a family, and that hits harder than I expected because the characters and their connections are actually strong. And if you're a longtime fan, then you'll appreciate that this movie still honors the established lore and tropes of the franchise. There's plenty of that to make you feel at home, but it's not overdone or forceful. Bloodlines feels fresh, and the comedy sticks the landing. Now, maybe you don't think over-the-top deaths are funny, which is totally valid, but this movie is actually just funny. There are several moments, bits of dialogue, or music choices that had me laughing out loud. A minute ago, I mentioned the family and that added connective layer. This works so well because the acting is solid. I particularly love the relationship between Bobby and Eric, Owen Joyner and Richard Harmon respectively. Their chemistry and performances added even more to the emotional grounding this movie delivers. And legend icon Tony Todd, rest in peace. Todd returns to the franchise as William Bludworth, and it really feels like the perfect full circle moment. He doesn't have much screen time, but as always, he utilizes his time well and he stands out. He's eerie, ethereal, and a little heartbreaking because of how much Todd shines through. A true horror legend delivering a farewell that just stays with you. Directors Zach and Adam deserve a mention in this section too because they know how to have fun with tension, fluctuating between anxiety and the chaotic delivery in a way that is so rewarding. The transitions, foreshadowing, and overall visual language keep you locked in. We are making a killer sandwich here, talking about blood and guts, then talking about some of the highlights before going right back in with more blood and guts. So let's talk about the deaths for a second because they are that good. I saw people online saying that the opening vision is one of the best in the franchise, and I have to agree. It's overwhelming, intense, and it sets the tone for the rest of the film. The deaths throughout the movie are so well done with a mix of CGI and practical effects. They're clever, brutal, and yeah, sometimes there's so much of all of that they become hilarious. Throughout the film, there's a sense of humor and lightheartedness, but it never undercuts the stakes. Even with the familiar formula, Bloodlines keeps you guessing with smart misdirects and fun little surprises. Now, as much as I enjoyed certain aspects, there were definitely a few things that had me reconsidering, or at least left some viewers wanting more. We're going to get into some criticisms about the movie, and I'll share my thoughts along the way. Several people felt that the film was brought down by the dysfunctional family drama, calling it tedious and that all the arguing distracted from the franchise's signature thrills. I kind of already talked about this, but I did want to include it in the critique section. I think the family dynamic felt organic and fresh. I love exploring the relationship between Iris and Darlene and Stephanie. The whole generational trauma arc really works for me. I love seeing the family trying to navigate this together, and it's something new to the franchise that I don't think distracted from anything. Honestly, I think it elevated the tension and it made the thrills more meaningful. When it comes to the characters, reactions were a little mixed. I thought the cast was good. I've said what I said. I like a few of the character dynamics, and I thought the acting was pretty good overall. But many people called the characters forgettable, saying that the directors didn't manage to pull standout performances from the cast. I mean, everyone has their own opinions, right? If I'm being honest, Stephanie and her brother Charlie were forgettable. I love their acting, but they really faded into the background for me even on a rewatch, so I can definitely see where some of these criticisms are coming from. Now, a lot of fans appreciated the film's commitment to the formula, but others said it was too familiar, saying that beyond the Bloodlines twist, the movie doesn't bring anything new to the table. I'm curious, what more newness did people want, and how different did they want it to play out? It's the same song and dance, but that song and dance is classic and iconic. Why switch it up too much? I think the Bloodlines twist is perfect. It's completely new, but recognizable. It's different, but not so different that it doesn't work. A minute ago, I was saying that the blend of practical effects and CGI was well done, and I stand by that. But some people were really focused on the film's visuals in a more critical way. People did say that the deaths were the highlight, but they were distracted by the heavy use of CGI, and they felt it diminished the impact. For the deaths particularly, I think they did a good job. Was the CGI pretty heavy at times? Yes, obviously so. But I don't think it diminished the impact. These movies have always had that mix of CGI and practical, and the CGI here in this movie is better done than some of the previous films in the franchise. However, the comments about the outdoor scenes feeling like indoor studio sets is real, and I think the combination of that and the heavy CGI added to my personal glaring issue with the movie. Look, you guys know I will ignore a lot of things because, let's be honest, Bloodlines is just that shocking, gory fun that we love. But the last 3 minutes or so, but especially the last 30-ish seconds of the movie, I wish they had done something different. I don't know, I didn't like it. Just like with the last episode on Jurassic Park Rebirth, I watched the entire franchise and I'm going to talk about it because I have no one except you guys to talk about movies with. So let's talk about watch order, my general thoughts on the franchise, how I would rank all 6 movies, my favorite deaths, and then we'll wrap up with my favorite premonitions. For the sake of time, we are going to breeze through this entire section with little to no explanation. Please beware of spoilers for previous installments in this section if you have not seen these movies and plan on watching them. Before I get into it, do you need to watch all 5 movies before watching Bloodlines? No. This movie does a really good job of weaving in the franchise's rules, making it easy to understand and accessible for new viewers. There are references and name drops that you won't understand without seeing previous installments, but overall, you'll be fine if this is your first time watching a Final Destination movie. But if you're down for maximum carnage and minimum characters that we actually care about, then in all honesty, I'm gonna say watch these movies in release order. Final Destination, Final Destination 2, Final Destination 3, The Final Destination, Final Destination 5, and Final Destination Bloodlines. Now I know there is an argument for watching The Final Destination first, but that twist at the end is too good, and it's the reason why I say watch these movies in release order. I'm not gonna lie, watching these movies kind of reminded me of when I rewatched the Saw franchise. I've seen most, if not all, of those movies, but it's been so long that I completely forgot a lot of things. So when I got to the end of The Final Destination, I was grinning ear to ear with how it played out. General thoughts on the franchise. It's so much fun. If you love this type of over-the-top, meticulous deaths, and you laugh a little because Death really has a flair for the dramatics and is out here stalking people, then it's a good time. On the surface, that's pretty much it. Dig a little deeper, and there's a conversation about life and death, acceptance and living, and the inevitable. It's interesting to think about, and then someone gets crushed by a car engine, or the fact that car engines to the persons happened more than once is hilarious. But that's my point. We can have those deeper conversations, and then someone dies in a dramatic or sudden way, and we're back to that gory entertainment. Speaking of gory entertainment, I do love this franchise for that gory entertainment, even if they're not all good movies. So how would I rank them? Final Destination, Final Destination 2 or Final Destination Bloodlines, Final Destination 3, Final Destination 5, and The Final Destination. Now, this is the part where we talk about favorite characters, and I actually was starting a list, but it was so short that I scrapped it and decided to go with my favorite deaths instead. I cannot stress to you how much I like them all, the suspense, the creativity, the effects, but I had to keep it short and sweet. My favorites are the escalator from The Final Destination, Hook, Hands, and Clear and Eugene from Final Destination 2, the MRI machine from Bloodlines, Carter's death from Final Destination, and Evan Lewis's death from Final Destination 2. And finally, my favorite premonitions are the traffic accident from Final Destination 2, the roller coaster accident from Final Destination 3, the plane explosion from Final Destination, and the Skyview collapse from Bloodlines. So I know that was a lot, but you already know I like to revisit previous installments. I told you my thoughts and I shared my favorites, but now we gotta focus back on Final Destination Bloodlines. Let's finish this up with who's gonna have fun with this movie and who's not even gonna crack a smile. Up front, I have to say, if you are not a fan of the Final Destination franchise, this movie will not change your mind, especially if you're not already in it for the gory bits. But for the fans, Bloodlines isn't just a nostalgia nod, it's a bold statement that the franchise's heart is still pumping. Whether you've been locked in with Final Destination for decades and are familiar with death's design, or you're just arriving on the scene, Bloodlines delivers something for everyone. This movie is full of little details to outright callbacks that reward veteran viewers who have been around since Flight 180. The elaborate death sequences that are a franchise staple are front and center, complete with a renewed focus. And honestly, I feel like every death in this movie really stand out. They are just that brutal. I really love the introduction of the Bloodlines concept. Does it leave some questions for fans? Yeah, but focusing just on the movie, it expands on the mythology in a way that's interesting. And for fans of the icon and legend Tony Todd, he reprises the role of Bludworth, and his presence is chilling and poignant, serving as a heartfelt goodbye that hits hard. If you're new to the franchise, again, don't worry, you don't need to watch the previous 5 films. And as a side note, I would suggest not watching them all at once. You know what I mean? Like, space them out, because I binge watched all of them over like 2 days. And by the time I got to Bloodlines, I was so desensitized. But I am glad that I rewatched it yesterday because it's been a couple of months and yeah, the deaths are ruthless. Beyond all the elaborate deaths, I do enjoy the character dynamics and family angle. I think they all work really well to elevate this installment. Now, maybe you're just here for the kills. You're not going to be disappointed. The intricate setups and the visual tension, gruesome entertainment at its finest. Overall, Bloodlines is high energy. We know it doesn't flinch away from graphic deaths, and it's self-aware enough to embrace just how absurd it is while still delivering genuine emotion. If you want even more gore, Bloodlines delivers. It doesn't resurrect the franchise, it revitalizes it. It's a slick, smart, and sinister return that gives fans what they know and love, and if you're new to the franchise, it is a wild introduction to the carnage. Alright you guys, a huge thank you to everyone who has stuck around with me to the end of the video. Last time we talked, I shared my thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth. A lot of people and not as many dinosaurs. Yeah, I had some thoughts. If you haven't checked that one out yet, you can find it in the top right corner if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are listening on Spotify, that episode is available for you as well. If you're enjoying the content on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next review. Speaking of next reviews, I posted a little update to the community tab on YouTube and I'm working on catching up. I'm going to be talking about Mission Impossible, 28 Years Later, Superman, and... So be sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Spotify to catch my thoughts on all of them. And hey, if you enjoy On The Go listening, then you should check out the podcast. Plus, I drop the occasional exclusive episode you won't find on YouTube. If you're already hanging out with me on the podcast, thank you very much. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll find a link in the description, or you can just search for me, A Rocket Review, on Spotify. You can always check out that community tab on YouTube that I mentioned for updates and the occasional poll when I fall behind. I am on Blue Sky at A Rocket Review, all one word. I haven't posted recently, but I did talk all about this franchise when I rewatched it a couple months ago. If you want to catch me posting sporadically about what I'm watching, that's where you'll find me. I'm still building, growing, and learning, and I'm really grateful to have you here with me. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast, or finding me over on Blue Sky, your support, a thumbs up, subscribe, follow, or comment truly means so much to me. So before you go, let me know in the comments, what did you think of Bloodlines? Too much humor? Did it deliver on the blood and guts? Was there a death that made you wince? What about one that made you laugh? I know there's at least one answer for both of those questions. Now you know I have to ask you guys, how would you rank the franchise, and which Final Destination death lives rent-free in your head? I want to know what you guys think, so let's get the conversation going. Until next time, spread positivity, and please be safe, take care of yourself, and take care of the people around you. Take breaks from the news, stay hydrated, don't forget to eat, and a friendly reminder that it's okay to distract yourself. So happy movie watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!